Okay, everybody, here we go. It's me, Gregory Mannarino, Sunday, September 10th, 2023, and this is my newest segment of Markets, A Look Ahead. I am really happy you're here with me because there's so much going on here as usual. Let's start off with this. For over a month now, this stock market here in the United States and around the world, in case you're not paying attention, and I know you are, has been under pressure. Why? What is going on here? Well, it's in our face. We are seeing a global debt market sell-off, which is being compounded by another factor. And I'm talking about China. China continues to dump U.S. Treasuries. Dump, and then dump more U.S. Treasuries. This is putting pressure clearly on the debt market as a whole. Now, I'm not saying that this whole thing with regard to the debt market sell-off is because of China, but it is certainly a big piece of it. Now, what do we know must happen? Let's think about what we know has to happen. If, let's say, and this is a fact, look it up for yourself, that China is dumping U.S. Treasuries, who's making up the difference? Who's at least trying to make up the difference? It's the Federal Reserve. They have to do this. This is, in a way, economic warfare. Not only, actually, there are a few things going on which you need to know about. Not only is China, or has China, for a while now, been dumping U.S. Treasuries, they've been also dumping their exposure to U.S. dollars. Not just that. The Bank of China just opened up a branch in the capital of Saudi Arabia. Do you see the setup here? We've been talking about this for a while now. Saudi Arabia now becoming a member of the BRICS nations here. What's going on is so clear to me, and I hope it's clear to you too. This new alliance with these energy-producing nations, not just Saudi Arabia, but several major oil producers and energy producers are now aligning themselves with the BRICS nations. They want to dominate. They want to and will. There's no doubt about it. They're going to dominate the energy markets, so just be ready for that. Now, speaking about energy real quick, all of you who follow this blog, I know you pay attention to this because I talk about it every freaking day. Okay, but we got crude oil. Do you realize that just several weeks ago, WTI crude was $67 a barrel? We are now at almost $88 a barrel for WTI. That's a profound move for which you and I called dead on. And I'm here to tell you something else. We're not done here. What should happen, and probably will, and it's not going to be good, believe me, is a little drop here, a pullback in crude. Brent crude is like $90 or over 90 at this point. I think it's somewhere around like that. Anyway, a pullback here and then forming a new bottom would be ridiculously bullish for crude. And why is this important? Because you're going to pay for it. Not only at the pump, but across the board. So all this talk about inflation, which by their own numbers continues to rise. It makes me laugh. It really, really does. You got the propaganda ministry just last week trying to push this positive GDP number, which is completely fake. Again, go to the Federal Reserve's own website. You will see the GDP number is negative. But they're pushing another lie, a fabrication, a deception, which you and I know is going to happen here. So you get this negative GDP number. Oh, let's use their own numbers. They're saying a positive 2.1% GDP, but let's weigh that against inflation by their own numbers. It's over 3%. So we're actually contracting again as a percentage of GDP, and this is a global phenomenon. But you're not allowed to know this. No, you have to be told that everything is lovely and great and fantastic and perfect because Bidenstein, because he's really the head of the whole thing. You know he is because that's how it works here. Presidents are like kings. You know that. No, it's all deception and distraction. You're going to get freaks like Bidenstein and all these other things, and they're all things, and I'm not being racially biased or anything, okay, because I continue to get called out on that video I did about Philip Jefferson. Greg, you're a racist. Greg, you're racist because you called him a thing and he's not human. No, it had nothing to do with his skin color, people. You know that. These people are just, well, frankly, idiots. Let's just call it as we see it, okay? Anyway, so let me get my head back on here. A market that's been under pressure now for over a month. MMRI crossed 250. Risk in this market is, well, I think it's at 278 the last time I looked at the MMRI. We are 22 points away from extreme risk. The market is not liking this, as is in our face. We can clearly see this. Okay, then we have this other issue of this global debt market sell-off, China dumping U.S. debt, China dumping U.S. dollars, trying clearly and being very successful to form alliances with energy producers, the BRICS nations as a whole. You got China putting up a bank here in Saudi Arabia. There's something else going on here that you need to know about. So the BRICS nations, I've talked about this, is a major threat to the petrodollar, and I mean a major threat, and it's going to lead to human suffering on a biblical level. There's no doubt about it. War, pain, suffering, you name it, it's coming, because the Federal Reserve is not going to allow this to go unchecked. Forget about it. False flag, nuclear device detonation somewhere. It's going to happen. All right? It's just a matter of when, and it's going to take all of us by surprise. We don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to. It must happen because, again, who runs the world? Who runs the world economy? Tell me again. Who runs the world markets? Tell me again. Who runs the world financial system? Tell me again. It's the central banks. And I don't think that the central banks have considered what is going on here. This BRICS alliance. This is a big, big deal. And those of you that may think this is not a big deal, you're deluded. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not paying attention to what's happening here. It's huge. It's the biggest thing to happen, I think, in many, many, many decades, honestly. So with that, look what I was writing this morning. I was just writing stuff down here. With regard to this market being under pressure now for weeks, the S&P 500 has price action of the S&P 500 has now fallen below its 50-day moving average. We were below it. We came above it. Now we're below it again. This is not a good sign for the market, especially looking at risk in this market. MMRI continuing to rise. The sell-off here in the debt market, China dumping treasuries, China dumping dollars, China trying to develop. Do you know what else China's doing here? And you probably know this, but I'm gonna just tell you anyway in case you don't know. China is trying to make the world less dependent on the dollar, quite obviously, and more dependent on their currency. They are now setting up cross-border trade using their currency, okay, totally sidestepping the dollar. Again, another major threat to the dollar here. So, I mean, look, it's in our face. If you can't see the writing on the wall now, you have no idea what's going on here, truly. Anyway, what else here? This is something else that you know about, and I want to just cover real quick. Energy inflation and food inflation. Food inflation continues to be number one. Okay, it's not going to stop. Food inflation is going to get much worse. Number two, energy inflation, playing right hand in hand, the two of these things together, much, much higher moving forward. Inflation across the board, much, much higher moving forward. There's no doubt about it. Let's think about another reason why this may be happening. Not only do we have China dumping treasuries, we have China dumping the dollar. Okay, that's adding the dollars that China has been holding in reserve. All nations hold reserves of other nations' currencies for a multitude of reasons, which we can cover at another time. China dumping dollars here is adding to the global pool of existing dollars in whatever form China's holding, mostly digital, no doubt about it. What is that doing? It's sucking the purchasing power out of the currency, out of the dollar, even worse. Even though on a relative strength basis, okay, comparative strength basis, the dollar is high, is strong. And you and I covered this from years ago. We said this phenomenon will continue and continue, and it will. It will until it doesn't. And I believe China, other nations around the world, this BRICS alliance, is doing everything in their power to put the final nails in the coffin of the petrodollar. And that is going to change life for everyone here in the United States. Again, the U.S. greatest export product, I used to always say, is inflation. But I'm telling you, it's two things. It's inflation and propaganda. They're propagandizing the citizens and the world, and I think you're all well aware of that here. Now, I want to bring this to your attention too. Again, this is important as well. We have discussed right here in this blog that the market believes that because of the continued bad economic news, round after round after round of it, that the Fed is going to be forced to cut rates. And this is why the stock market hasn't cratered as of late. Yes, we've been under pressure for weeks and weeks and weeks now with risk rising. But the market is all giddy thinking that the Fed is going to cut rates sooner than later. So here's an interesting piece of information. So Capital Economic Research, they had this to say, that the continued negative economic news is likely to cause the Federal Reserve to cut rates in 2024. This is what the market is literally banking on. That the continuing, they're saying negative, they can't say bad, so they have to use another word, negative. Negative means bad. Okay, I think we can establish that as a fact, so that the negative economic news is going to force the Fed to cut rates in 24. And I'm going to tell you it's not going to happen. Will we get a pause? I think we will. But the Fed is going to keep the pressure on. They got the world by the throat. They got the American people by the throat. They have U.S. small businesses by the throat. They're not going to let off on that pressure. That's the real reason why the Fed has been raising rates. What have we been hearing? Oh, we're raising rates. The Fed's going to raise rates. It's going to make inflation better. No, it's gone nothing, but it's gone worse. It's gotten worse, and you and I knew it would since the inception of this. It's a game. It's a charade. It's a complete falsehood. Okay, the Fed is raising rates for two reasons. It has nothing to do with trying to control inflation. Because why? A central bank's power resides in what, people? What is Greg going to tell you? One thing, its ability to inflate. What the Fed is doing is cutting off the availability of credit to small businesses and the consumer. And they're creating a two-tier society, a new feudal system, and you're right in the heart of it, people. I want you to understand that. But I don't agree at all with Capital Economic Research here. I think they're dead wrong. I do not think the Fed is going to be cutting rates because of negative news on the economy. I think they're going to keep the pressure on. All of this, I want you to consider what we've been speaking about. All of this is going on in the middle of another charade. That is positive GDP. GDP is negative here in the United States. Again, I did a whole video about this. If you subscribe to my free newsletter, I showed you a snapshot right off of the Fed's website. Negative. The GDP is in the negative. And that's not even accounting for the fact that government spending is off the charts right now, and it's only going to get worse too. Government spending is calculated in this whole thing. Imagine my shock. Imagine your shock. Make this stuff up. We are literally living in some kind of twisted alternative universe that you can't possibly make up if you wanted to. Anyway, look, people, nobody is more ahead of the curve than you are. Okay. And just lastly, just real quick, I did a video on Friday where I explained to you that, it should be clear as clear can be. Multiple bank failures are going to come. The FDIC is concealing the names of failing banks. Why are they doing this? Because it's privileged information according to them. Okay, we covered this on Friday. If you haven't seen my video on Friday, check it out. So the FDIC is aware that multiple banks are failing. And they're telling us all right now that they could step in at any moment and shut these institutions down. That means your cash is getting locked up. Okay? Once the FDIC takes over an institution, you can't get your money out until it's settled. You understand? This is why I've been telling you, get your cash out. If we're not allowed to know, if it's above our pay grade, even though we, the American people, this is supposed to be our government right now. You have no say-so in any of this here. So I just don't think it's right that the Federal Reserve is allowed to keep this information from people. They know the banks that are failing and are going to fail. They know it is going to happen. This is a consolidation of the system. You all know that. This is what they are doing. And I believe with this action, with the BRICS nations here, they're going to accelerate this, the consolidation of power. So we could see failures of major institutions happen at any moment. And your cash, you ain't going to have access to it. I just want you to understand that. And I want you to get angry because I don't think it's right and I don't think it's fair that the FDIC considers this privileged information that we can't know. Your cash and my cash is in some of these institutions, obviously, right? Okay. But we're not allowed to know which ones are failing. What good is this organization then? Honestly, I hope that one of you will tell me, because I frankly don't know. All right, look, I'm going to end this video. I think this has been exceedingly important. I want to hear from you. What the things I've spoken about, are they important? Do you think people need to hear about this? If you believe that's true, and I think you do, please give this video a thumbs up. Share this video. Get it out there. Okay, I'm counting on all of you to get this information out, because people need to know what's happening to them and why. All right? This guy here loves you a lot from the heart. I mean that. I will see all of you tomorrow morning for my usual lovely pre-market report. We're going to get through this, people. Again, we got each other's backs, and in my view, that makes us invincible. See you tomorrow.